Welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 349. Today I'm going to look at some international news, may or may not have made the headlines here. There are some reports that North Korea has expanded their use of the death penalty to now include watching or sharing foreign films or television shows. Some teenagers have been sentenced to 10 years of hard labor for watching a South Korean television program. If they take their TV and movies seriously over there in North Korea, maybe we should pipe in some Elvis and Pearl Jam and really piss them off. For the 55th straight year in a row, Japan holds the record for the most people who are at least 100 years old, as the number has risen to almost 100,000 of these people. That's 10 million years of life experience. Known for their long lifespans and low birth rates, experts believe a healthy lifestyle leads to the longevity. And the hopes of the gay Asians were dashed this past week when lawmakers in Hong Kong killed a proposal that would have recognized gay marriage. Homosexuality was criminalized in 1991 in Hong Kong, but many gay Asians were hoping to avoid that costly trip to Guam, Australia, or Thailand to tie the knot. Sorry about that, gay Asians. Watchdog groups are reporting that there are cyber slavery camps being operated by Chinese organized crime gangs in Myanmar in Southeast Asia. There are reported 100,000 trafficked people believed to be working these scam lines. Most people are lured from Africa and elsewhere to work in Thailand and then spirited across the border into Myanmar. After Secretary of State Marco Rubio left Israel, the Israelis bombed Hamas targets in Doha in the country of Qatar. This occurred as the IDF noted that an estimated 250,000 terrorist lovers in Gaza City have evacuated that town in anticipation of a major Israeli operation. Finland has discovered that 2 men suspected of serious crimes in that country have previously been convicted of contract killing in Sweden. Apparently, contract killing is a new thing in Scandinavian countries, thanks to social media. Officials in Finland are reporting that if things don't change by the end of the next decade, about half of Finnish elementary schools may be forced to close. The reason is declining birth rates in the country. The birth rate hit a historic low in 2024. Rural schools are expected to take the brunt of any closures. Finland's population is being bolstered by immigration at this point. So come on, Finns, starts growing. However, a survey of immigrant women in Finland has found that over 50% believe the societal climate in Finland has changed for the worse. Most of the women blame recently enacted government policies that shift the issue of employment from the national government to municipalities. Norway's Labour Party won national elections, meaning that Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store will remain in power, albeit with a smaller left-of-center coalition to work with this time around. The reason is that a more conservative populist party showed its best effort yet, doubling their seats in parliament, spurred by high turnout from younger male voters. Kind of sounds familiar. Unlike Hong Kong, Lithuania finally recognized its first gay marriage when 2 lesbian pussy lickers exchanged vows and rings at the courthouse in their capital of Vilnius. The couple had been engaged for a decade before Lithuania's constitutional court ruled that opposite-sex marriage exclusively violated their constitution. Gregory Braun, a member of the Polish parliament, is facing a slew of charges after he extinguished a Hanukkah menorah last December and made some disparaging remarks toward Jews. Previously, Braun had destroyed a Christmas tree in the Krakow courthouse, so I guess he's an equal opportunity hater. And Poland is calling on NATO to establish an anti-drone wall on its border with Russia, akin to Israel's Iron Dome system. This was suggested 2 days after Russian drones launched against Ukraine violated Polish airspace. Several of the drones were shot down by the Polish Air Force, and some caused damage to civilian homes in Poland. Hannah S., they never give the last name, is on trial in Munich for a host of crimes, including attempted murder, after attacking what her attorneys describe as a gathering of neo-Nazis in Budapest, Hungary in 2023. Hannah allegedly belongs to a leftist group that engages in quote-unquote violence tourism, where they travel to other countries to engage in violent behavior against who they deem to be neo-Nazis. Prosecutors are seeking a 9-year prison term. She opted for a trial in Germany rather than Hungary, feeling she would get a better chance in Germany. The Bavarian state premier, Markus Söder, recently warned of the rising popularity of the German anti-immigration AfD party while not calling for outright banning them, as some have called for. Söder says the move would be counterproductive and paint them as martyrs. However, the popularity of the AfD remains high, and they are still the largest opposition party in the country, and expected to grow because a recent poll out of Thuringia shows that support for the AfD has increased to 37% since they attained greater status in that German state previously. Record support for AfD was also seen in Saxony-Anhalt. These polls have sent shockwaves through German political leaders. A new report shows that 55% of Berlin's recruitments for their police force in 2025 needed remedial German instruction, since they cannot speak fluent German in a country called Germany. Of course, it doesn't help that 42% of the recruits are from immigrant communities. Fearing Russian aggression beyond Ukraine, a confidential German report indicates they will need an additional 100,000 military members by 2035. The report takes on added significance as President Trump has signaled his intent to decrease our military presence in Europe. Far-left extremists are taking responsibility for an attack on a power supply hub that left 50,000 people in southeastern Berlin without power. This was one of the biggest power outages in Berlin since the end of the Cold War. The damage to 2 electricity pylons may take until 2026 to repair. Belgium has announced they have dropped a performance of the Munich Philharmonic Orchestra at a festival in Ghent. The reason is that the orchestra is conducted by Lahab Shani. The organizers note that Shani has not significantly distanced himself from the quote-unquote genocidal Israeli regime for their actions in Gaza. This has caused the German government to respond that the action is despicable, and rightfully so. Well, Austria is moving ahead with banning girls under the age of 14 from wearing headscarves in schools, clearly targeting the Muslim community. A previous ban on headscarves was struck down by Austrian courts in 2019. However, this time officials note that the purpose is equality between girls, coupled with reforms for integrating Muslims into Austrian society and culture. French investigators believe that a foreign intelligence service, likely Russia, left 9 pigs' heads outside mosques in Paris recently. The French believe Russia is behind these actions to destabilize the country, as if they need the Russians to get destabilized. Surveillance shows drivers in a car with Serbian license plates leaving the heads and then also leaving the country. Facing a huge budget squeeze, Fitch Ratings downgraded France's credit rating, warning that without swift action, the country will face economic problems into 2027. France's debt last year amounted to 113% of GDP, which is well above the EU mandated target of 60%. Fitch expects that debt to climb to 121% of GDP by 2027 without getting the country's fiscal house in order. President Emmanuel Macron of France named Sébastien Lecornu as the new prime minister of that country, his 5th in 2 years. François Bayrou was ousted after a no-confidence vote in Parliament. Le Cornu is considered a safe choice and a close ally of Macron. However, massive protests broke out throughout France amid a growing government crisis. Over 80,000 police were deployed throughout the country. The protests are a response to the austerity plan put forth by Bayrou, who I previously mentioned was ousted from his position. After a major bike race was disrupted in Spain over the past weekend by pro-terrorist protesters, Spain's socialist prime minister called for Israel to be banned from all international sporting competitions over their continued war in Gaza. The protesters opposed the inclusion of an Israeli biking team in the race. Now, the Royal Yacht Club and other sailing entities in Great Britain are changing the language so as not to offend transgender or non-binary sailors. Apparently, the phrases man overboard or sportsmanship are verboten now. They are also warning boaters not to name their boats Christian names, as that is also not inclusive and might offend that rare British Muslim yacht owner. But it gets better because a British man was arrested by 3 police officers after he called another person a muppet. In England, muppet is a slang word for idiot. The man was arrested for causing a public disorder because apparently calling someone an idiot, or in this case a muppet, are fighting words and possibly an insult to other nearby idiots. I mean, you can't make this shit up. The St. George's flag has become a rallying symbol in Great Britain against immigrants and for free speech, and now it has made an appearance on a well-known landmark in Wiltshire. Someone fashioned the Red Cross on the famous white horse on the hillside with fabric. Police are not investigating it, as they say no crime has been committed and there has been no damage. A strike by trash collectors in Birmingham, England has now hit the 6-month mark, with the union vowing to continue to strike if they have to. One can imagine the mounds of trash piling up. One school hasn't had their trash collected in 10 weeks, and the elderly are particularly hard hit. Still, the union recently voted to authorize a strike until March of 2026 if all their demands are not met. Almost 200 migrants to England have sued the government for housing them in quote-unquote inhumane conditions at a detention center in Dover after they illegally entered the country. Last year, the Home Office paid an almost $300,000 court settlement to a migrant. I guess this is why they're being put up in swanky hotels now. An anti-immigrant rally in London attracted over 150,000 protesters. The demonstrators waved British and St. George's flags, and many even wore red MAGA hats. Elon Musk joined the event via a video link. Out-of-control immigration has become the dominant political issue in Great Britain, and those police clashed with thousands of anti-immigration protesters in London, and led by firebrand Tommy Robinson. The police intervened as Robinson's marched near Westminster and was confronted by about 5,000 counter-protesters believed to be Antifa types. Since 2018, the number of migrants who have crossed the English Channel from France and now call England their home has reached over 181,000. To put that in perspective, there are now more illegal migrants in England than there are members of their military, including their reserves. Data also shows that 90% of the migrants are male, which might explain why they like to rape English girls. To date, at least 19 people with ties to terrorism have been positively identified among the migrants. 3 men from Slovakia have been sentenced to a total of 53 years between them in a British prison after they were convicted of drugging and raping a 12-year-old girl over a period of 3 days and then leaving her for death. 2 of the men have agreed to deportation after they serve at least 2/3 of their sentence. They all should be kicked out. They actually all should have their balls ripped off. A sheriff in Scotland has determined that a self-styled African tribe of 3 be removed from a forest on private land in Scotland. The so-called Kingdom of Kabula have been camping in the area for several weeks now and claim the land was taken from their ancestors 400 years ago. 2 members of the kingdom are from Zimbabwe, and the third is from Texas. Kubala has 100,000 followers and supporters on Facebook and TikTok. Yeah, it's a kingdom of 3. Bebo Bester, dubbed the Facebook rapist in South Africa, has lost his bid to block a Netflix documentary on his deeds, arguing it violates his rights to a fair trial. Sentenced to life in prison for luring victims via Facebook and then raping them, he then faked his own death in prison by setting another prisoner on fire in his cell and escaping in the melee. He was later captured in Tanzania. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was sentenced to 27 years in jail by a kangaroo court in that country. He was convicted of attempting a coup to maintain power after he lost a close election. Incidentally, the prosecutor was also a judge on a panel of 5. President Trump has threatened huge tariffs on Brazil as a result of the conviction. And finally, in neighboring Mexico, the government is considering raising taxes on junk food, tobacco, and processed foods the government deems unhealthy, stuff like soda and energy drinks. Expected to raise $575 million a year. This is sure to make the Frito Bandito very unhappy. The levy on tobacco is expected to increase 200% by 2030, so sorry Mexicans, it's going to cost a lot more to smoke down there. Anyway, that's it. Thanks, have a great day, and a more pleasant tomorrow.